The first time my son raised his hand at me, it wasn't a stranger who called the police. It was me. Because in that moment, standing in his kitchen with my cheek burning where his palm had landed, I realized something I never thought I'd have to admit out loud. My own child was willing to hurt me to protect the woman who hated me. If that makes your stomach twist, you're not the only one. Before I tell you what happened after my son hit me because of something I said to his wife, do me a small favor. If you like having these long, honest family stories playing while you cook, clean, or lie in bed at night, tap the like button and subscribe. It tells YouTube to bring you back to Aunt Ruby's table every time I share another story. Now let me tell you how a few sharp words, years of swallowed hurt, and one raised hand changed the way I saw my own son forever. My name is Margaret. I'm 72 years old, retired from 35 years as a school librarian, and I used to believe there were two kinds of boys, the ones who throw punches and the ones who hold the coats. My son, Daniel, was always a coat holder. He was the kid who broke up fights on the playground, not the one who started them. When other boys shoved their mothers away in teenage embarrassment, he still hugged me in public. When his father drank too much and started slamming doors, Daniel would walk me to my room and say, "It's okay, Mom. He'll calm down. I'm here." The idea that those hands would one day be the ones shoving me, that thought never crossed my mind, not once. Daniel married later than most of his friends. He was 35 when he brought Emily home for Easter. She was pretty in a catalog way. Blonde bob, perfect teeth, clothes that looked like they'd come straight off a mannequin at Macy's. She worked in HR for some tech company and used phrases like managing expectations and circling back in casual conversation. From the first moment, I felt like I was being evaluated. "Your house is so cozy," she said, looking around my little Ohio bungalow with the wallpaper Carl and I had picked out in 1984. Cozy, the word people use when they want to say small without sounding rude. I tried. I really did. I asked her about her job, I learned her coffee order, I wrote her birthday on my calendar in red so I wouldn't forget. But there was always a thin sheet of glass between us. She called me Margaret, never Mom or even Marge. "I already have a mom," she said once, when Daniel gently suggested it. "It would feel weird." Fair enough, I thought. Names aren't everything. What worried me more was the way she looked at Daniel whenever he did anything the slightly bit silly or soft. He'd crack a dad joke, and she'd give that little eye roll that says, "See what I have to put up with." He'd carry my groceries, and she'd sigh dramatically, like I was stealing him from her. Still, newlyweds need time to adjust. I remembered my own rough edges when I first married Carl, how his mother and I had circled each other like two cats for the first few years before we learned to share the same sunbeam. I told myself it would smooth out. Instead, it sharpened. The first real fracture happened over Thanksgiving. They were hosting that year in their new house, a tidy 3-bedroom in a planned subdivision where all the mailboxes matched. I baked my famous pecan pie, the one Daniel always asked for on his birthday when he was little. When we sat down to eat, Emily announced that this year they were doing things a little differently. No politics, no drama, and no talking about anyone's weight or what's on their plate, she said brightly. "We want this to be a safe space." "Safe from what?" I joked. "Cranberry sauce?" She gave me that HR smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes. Later, while we were cleaning up, I stood next to her at the sink. "You do a beautiful Thanksgiving," I said honestly. "You're very organized." "Thanks," she replied, too quickly. I hesitated, then added, "I hope you know I never mean anything unkind. Sometimes I talk too much. If I say something that bothers you, you can tell me. I'm not fragile." She shrugged. "It's just, Daniel has a lot of childhood stuff. His dad, the yelling, the drinking. He needs calm now. So when people bring tension into the house, it's hard for him." The way she said people made it clear who she meant. "Emily," I said, keeping my voice as even as I could, "if you have a problem with something I've done, I'd rather you just say it. I can't fix what I don't know about." She dried her hands. Okay, she said, since you asked. The comments about the kitchen and the way you rearranged the spice cabinet while I was on the phone, that stuff makes me feel like you don't respect that this is my home now. It's a lot. I felt my face flush. I was just trying to help, I said. I've been cooking for Thanksgiving since before you were born. Habit, I guess. I get that, she said coolly. But sometimes help feels like control, and Daniel shuts down when he feels controlled. There it was. My son's feelings translated through a third party. I drove home that night with the pie dish on the passenger seat and a stone in my chest. I told myself to apologize next time, to tread lighter, to remember that a daughter-in-law is not a daughter, no matter how much you'd like her to be. And I did apologize, in my own awkward way. I brought flowers the next week, complimented her decorating, sat on my hands when I wanted to straighten her crooked photo frames. Things were civil. Not warm, not hostile, just cool room temperature. Then Carl died. It was 2 years later. In between those holidays, we'd had quiet Sundays, a few birthday dinners, polite texts about weather and sales at Kohl's. But grief doesn't care about any of that. Carl's heart gave out on a Tuesday morning while he was raking leaves. The neighbors saw him fall and called 911. By the time I got to the hospital, he was already gone. Daniel drove me home that day. Emily sat in the back seat, murmuring into her phone. I remember staring at my own hands in my lap and thinking, they look like my mother's now. Old, veined, alone. You're not alone, Mom, Daniel said hoarsely, as if he'd heard the thought. You have us. For the first few months, that was true. They checked in on me, they brought dinners, they invited me over for movie nights. Emily even sat with me while I went through Carl's clothes, folding shirts into donation bags with surprising gentleness. Grief is weird, she said. It makes people act out. If you need to yell or cry or whatever, it's okay. Maybe we were turning a corner, I thought. But grief is also long, longer than casseroles and sympathy cards. Around month 6, the invitations slowed. We're so busy with work, Daniel's exhausted, we need some couple time. I understood, I really did. I didn't want to cling like Ivy. Still, the house felt like an empty shell without Carl's whistling in the kitchen or the click of his boots in the hall. Sometimes I'd pick up my phone, scroll to Daniel's name, and then put it down again. I didn't want to be too much. Then I fell. It was a stupid accident, tripped on the rug near the back door. I landed hard on my right side. Nothing broke, thank God, but the bruise on my hip turned colors I hadn't seen since the 70s. My doctor gave me a cane for a while. He also gave me a look. You live alone in a 2-story house, he said. We need to talk about stairs and help. Daniel heard the word stairs and panicked. Sell the house, he said immediately. Move in with us. We've got the guest room. It'll be temporary, just until we figure something out. My heart jumped at the thought of not waking up alone, of hearing life in the hallway again, of smelling coffee someone else had made. Emily's face tightened, but she nodded slowly. Of course, she said. We'll make it work. We moved my things into their guest room. I brought the minimum: a dresser, my favorite chair, boxes of books, framed photos. I put Carl's picture on the nightstand and told him, looks like we're roommates with the kids now. At first, it was nice. I made breakfast for them, I folded laundry when I saw it in the basket, I paid for groceries more often than not. I tried to be useful, to earn my keep, even though Daniel insisted I didn't need to. Your family, he said. You don't pay rent. Emily's smile got tighter every time he said it. The cracks started showing in the small things. I wiped the kitchen counters the wrong way. I loaded the dishwasher inefficiently. I offered advice about their finances when the subject of credit card debt came up, and Emily's jaw clenched like I'd insulted her IQ. One night, I overheard them in the next room. She's rearranging the way we live, Emily hissed. This is not a bed and breakfast for widows. She's my mother, Daniel shot back. She just lost Dad. What do you want me to do? Throw her out? I want you to have a spine, she said. Set boundaries. Every time she's here, I feel like a guest in my own home. The words sliced through me. Guest in her own home, as if I were the invader. I cried quietly into my pillow that night, Carl's photo turned face down because I couldn't stand the thought of him seeing me like that. The next morning, I decided to try something different. Instead of hovering, I stayed in my room more. I knitted, I read, I watched old movies on my tablet with headphones. I made myself intentionally smaller. It helped, for a while. Then came the afternoon that changed everything. It was a Saturday in late spring. Daniel was at the hardware store. Emily was in the kitchen with me, scrolling on her phone between stirring a pot of soup. I noticed she looked tired, really tired. "Rough week?" I asked. She sighed. "Just work stuff," she said. "Layoffs. Everyone's waiting to see who's next. Plus money. It's always something." I hesitated. "You know," I began, "when Carl and I were your age, we had some years where the bills scared us too. We sat down once a month and wrote everything out. Seeing it on paper helped. If you ever want someone to look over your budget with you, I'm pretty good with numbers." I meant it as an offer, not a criticism. Emily's shoulders stiffened. "We're fine," she said shortly. "Our finances are not your business." I started. She cut me off. "You make these little comments," she said, her voice rising, "about money, about the house, about the way we do things. It's exhausting. I feel like I'm being graded all the time." My chest tightened. "I'm not grading you. I'm trying to help." "That's the problem," she snapped. "You think your way is help, but what it feels like is control. Daniel might not say it, but he feels it too. Every time you offer advice, he shuts down. He starts acting like a little kid again." Something hot flared in me. "Acting like a little kid?" I repeated. "I raised that boy. I watched him act like a little man when his father drank himself sick. I watched him walk me down the hallway during those nights so I wouldn't have to listen through the door. Forgive me if I slip into taking care of him. It's muscle memory." "That's exactly it," she said. "You can't see that he's not your little boy anymore. He's my husband, my partner. And when you undermine him, you undermine us." The word undermine hit me like a slap. "I have never undermined my son," I said, my voice shaking. "I've built my life around making sure he felt safe. Maybe you could try that sometime, instead of treating him like a project." The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Emily's eyes went cold. "Wow," she said. "There it is. The real you. You think you're the only woman who's ever taken care of him? That I don't do anything? That I'm some, what did you say once? Corporate girl?" I opened my mouth to take it back, but it was too late. Daniel walked in then, keys jangling, whistling softly. He stopped when he saw our faces. "What's going on?" Emily turned to him, tears already gathering. "Your mother just told me I don't make you feel safe," she said, "that I don't take care of you, that I treat you like a project." "That's not what I began. Daniel's face darkened in a way I'd never seen. "Mom, did you say that?" he demanded. I was frustrated, I said. "I shouldn't have said it like that. "So you did say it," he cut in. "After everything Emily does, you still think you're the only one who loves me?" His voice was loud now, too loud. "Daniel, that's not fair," I said. "I love her. I've tried. You criticize her cooking, her spending, the way she runs her own house," he shouted. "You sneak around making comments and then act innocent. You make her feel like she'll never measure up." "That's not what I'm doing," I said, my own voice rising. "I only ever wanted the best for you, for both of you." Emily stood back, watching, a hand to her mouth. "Maybe the best thing for us," Daniel said, "is for you to stop being in our business. For you to remember this isn't your house. You live here, but you don't run it." The words stung. I know it's your house, I snapped. Believe me, I feel that every day. I don't have a drawer in this kitchen that's truly mine. I don't have a corner in this living room that doesn't feel borrowed. But I sold my home and moved in because you begged me not to be alone after your father died. Don't rewrite history now. His eyes flashed. You think I don't know what you gave up? He yelled. You remind us every time you don't like something. And now you're attacking my wife in my own kitchen? I felt something in me snap. I am not attacking her, I said. I made a clumsy comment, and she twisted it. She's been twisting things since the day. The rest of the sentence never left my mouth. Because that's when Daniel stepped forward, his face inches from mine, and shouted, "Don't you dare talk about my wife that way." And then his hand came up. It wasn't a punch. It was an open palm, quick, a sharp crack against my left cheek. Time slowed. I heard the sound before I felt the sting. I saw Emily's eyes go wide. I felt my own body stumble back into the counter, the edge biting into my hip. For a second, no one moved. The cheek burned hot. The kitchen spun. "Dan," Emily gasped, "what are you doing?" He froze, staring at his own hand like it belonged to someone else. "Mom," he whispered, "I didn't. You were—" In that moment, 100 memories collided. The night Carl threw a plate against the wall. The way Daniel had stepped between us when he was 14, voice breaking as he shouted at his father to stop. The way he'd once held my hand and said, "I'll never be like him, Mom, I swear." Now, here we were. Same kitchen dynamic, different generation. I straightened slowly, my cane against the wall, ignoring the way my hip screamed. "Don't touch me," I said when he reached out. It was the quietest sentence I'd spoken all day, but it might as well have been a thunderclap. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he babbled. "I didn't mean. You were yelling at Emily. You pushed me." "I didn't push you," I said. "You raised your hand to me because I said something you didn't like. That's not an accident, Daniel. That's a choice." Tears filled his eyes. "I love you," he said. I lost it." "That's what your father always said," I replied. "Every time. I lost it." As if his temper climbed out of him like a stranger and did the hitting for him. I turned to Emily, who stood pale and shaken. "So this is what safe looks like in your house?" I said. "Good to know." I went to my room. I closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and put my hand to my cheek. It was all ready. Swelling slightly, a red mark blooming. My mind raced. He didn't mean it. He was defending his wife. He's under stress. Every excuse I'd ever made for Carl lined up like dominoes. And then another thought slid in, cold and clear. If this were your friend telling you this story about her son, what would you say? I reached for my phone. I dialed 911. My fingers shook, but my voice was steady. "There's been a domestic incident," I said. "My adult son hit me." The operator asked questions. I answered them. I gave the address. Within minutes, there was a knock at the door. Daniel's face went white when he saw the patrol car outside. "Mom, what did you do?" he whispered. "I did what I should have done years ago with your father," I said. "I called for help." The officers were calm, professional. They separated us. One spoke to Daniel and Emily in the living room. The other came to my room. "Ma'am, can you tell me what happened?" he asked. I did, plainly, without embroidery. "Do you want to press charges?" he asked gently. I hesitated. In my mind, I saw Daniel at 6, holding up a crayon drawing. At 16, in his prom tux. At 30, crying when his father's drinking finally caught up with him. "I want it on record," I said. "I want there to be a line he knows he crossed. I don't know yet about charges, but I want it documented." They took photos of my cheek. They wrote things down. They talked to Daniel again. In the end, because it was a first incident and I was unsure, they didn't arrest him that day. They filed a report. They recommended counseling. They gave us information about resources. Emily hovered in the hallway afterward. "I'm so sorry," she said. He's never done anything like that before. I didn't think he would." "No one ever does," I said, "until they do." Daniel knocked on the door later, eyes red. "Mom, please," he said. "Can we talk?" "Not today," I replied. "I'm going to a hotel tonight. Tomorrow, I'm calling a realtor about my things. I won't stay where I'm not safe." His face crumpled. "You're overreacting," he said. "It was one slap. I was angry. You know I'd never—" "One is enough," I said. "Ask your younger self. The boy who begged me to leave his father. He understood that. You, apparently, have forgotten." I left that night with a suitcase and my purse. It felt like a slow-motion eviction, except I was the one evicting myself. At the hotel, I stared at the beige wallpaper and cried harder than I had since Carl's funeral. Not just for the pain, for the loss of the picture I'd carried in my head of who my son was. The next morning, I called my sister, Joan. She drove 3 hours, walked into my hotel room, took one look at my cheek, and said, "All right, what's our plan?" Our plan. Those 2 words felt like a lifeline. We found me a small senior apartment complex across town. Nothing fancy, clean, safe. 1 level, no stairs. A shuttle to the grocery store. Neighbors who minded their own business, but noticed if your lights stayed off too long. I gave Daniel and Emily dates and times when they could bring my things. I asked Joan to be there every time. I didn't want to be alone with him yet. The first time he came, he stood in the doorway, arms full of boxes, eyes searching my face. "Mom, please," he said. "Can we talk now, away from Joan, just you and me?" "No," I said, calmly. "Not yet. Maybe after counseling, maybe after some time, but not today." "You're really going to throw away our whole relationship over one mistake?" he demanded. "I'm not throwing anything away," I replied. "I'm putting it somewhere safe so it doesn't get smashed into more pieces." He set the box down harder than necessary. "You told the police," he said. "Yes," I said, "because I needed you to understand this wasn't just a family argument. It crossed a line, and I refused to pretend it didn't." He shook his head. "I was defending my wife," he muttered. "And I'm defending myself," I said. "And, whether you believe it or not, I'm defending the part of you that promised you'd never become your father." He flinched. We didn't speak again for 3 months. He sent texts. I answered some, ignored others. Emily sent an email halfway through, apologizing again, saying she'd started seeing a therapist, saying Daniel was too. "None of this is your fault," she wrote, "but I'm sorry for my part in the argument that led up to it. You didn't deserve that." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was something. Eventually, my pastor asked if I'd be willing to try a mediated conversation, at the church, with a counselor present. I agreed, on one condition. If at any point I felt unsafe, I could walk out. The day of the meeting, I sat in a small room with soft chairs and a box of tissues on the table. The counselor, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, explained the rules. Everyone gets to speak, no interrupting, no shouting, no physical contact, unless it's clearly wanted. We're here to listen, not to win. Daniel looked older, tired. Emily looked like she hadn't slept properly in weeks. The counselor turned to me. "Margaret, would you like to start?" she asked. I took a breath. "The day Daniel hit me," I said slowly, "something inside me broke. Not just trust, a kind of story I'd carried. The story that my son was different from his father. That the line of violence stopped with that generation. When his hand connected with my face, it felt like the past had reached forward and grabbed me again." Daniel's eyes filled. "I hate that I did that," he said quietly. "I really do. I think about it every day. It doesn't feel like me. It feels like some version of me I swore I'd never be." "The version you become when you're angry," I said.
That's still you, Daniel. That's the part that needs attention, not excuses. He nodded miserably. I've been going to anger management, he said, and individual therapy. We've been doing couples counseling too. I'm trying to understand why that switch flipped. Emily spoke up. I pushed him, she said quietly. Not physically, but emotionally. I ran to him with what you said. I presented it as an attack. I wanted him to defend me. I never imagined it would escalate like that, but I poured gasoline on the fire. I poured my own, I admitted. I said something cruel about you. It came from a place of jealousy and fear. I was afraid of being replaced, of being less needed. That doesn't excuse it, but I can see it now. The counselor nodded. Everyone here is acknowledging their part, she said. That's important. But Margaret, you are the one who was physically harmed. You get to set the boundaries going forward. What do you need to feel safe? I thought for a long time. I need Daniel to understand that there are consequences, I said. So far, those consequences have been distance. I'm willing to try contact again, slowly, public places at first. No overnights at their house. And if there is ever yelling or any sign of physical anger again, I will walk away for good. No second chances, no, but we were stressed. This was the one time. It doesn't get another. Daniel swallowed. I accept that, he said. I don't want there to be another time. I'm so ashamed there was even one. I also need an apology without but in it, I added. No, I'm sorry, but you provoked me. No, I'm sorry, but you said. Just the word sorry, tied to your own choice. He met my eyes. Mom, he said, voice thick, I am sorry I hit you. I chose to let my anger control me. I scared you. I hurt you. You didn't deserve that. It is my fault, not yours. Tears slipped down my face. Thank you, I whispered. Emily leaned forward. I can't promise I'll never be defensive again, she said, but I can promise I will not ask Daniel to choose between us like that. And if there's conflict, I'll address it with you calmly, not run to him to solve it. That wasn't fair to either of us.
We talked for 2 hours about boundaries, about respect, about old wounds that had never healed right. When it was over, we didn't walk out as a magically fixed family, but we did walk out as people willing to try again, with guardrails. These days, Daniel and I meet once a week for coffee at a cafe near my apartment. Sometimes Emily comes, sometimes she doesn't. When she does, we talk about neutral things, recipes, shows, the neighbor's ridiculous dog. The bruise on my cheek faded long ago. The bruise on my heart is slower. I still flinch if someone moves too quickly near my face. I still wake some nights hearing that sharp crack in my memory. I still see the boy he was and the man he became, overlapping like a double exposure. But I am also proud of myself for calling for help, for moving out, for refusing to rewrite what happened as just an argument. If you're listening to this and you've been hit by a family member, whether it's a spouse, a child, or anyone living under your roof, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not overreacting. You are not too sensitive. And love is not supposed to come with bruises, physical or otherwise. If you are the one who lost your temper, who said, I just snapped, hear this too. That snapping is not a personality quirk. It is a choice. It might be a choice you learned from painful places. It might be a choice you hate. But until you own it and get help, you will keep making it. The day my son hit me because I dared to say something he didn't like about his wife, I thought it was the end of everything between us. It wasn't. It was the end of pretending some lines hadn't been crossed. And sometimes that's the only way a family that's built on old cracks can ever hope to stand up straight again.